We've talked about the Paleo period. That would be the oldest period where humans lived in Georgia. And that brings us to the Woodland Period. The Woodland Period, we see a lot of change, a lot of different things technologically and just in how people live. The culture changed during the Woodland Period. 3,000 to 1,000 years ago, there's a little bit of migration that takes place, but very little. Not nearly what we saw in the Paleo period or the Archaic period. They begin to live in tribal villages. So that means if we were a group of woodland Indians and we lived in the same village, we would all be related to one another. We would have a common ancestry. And that's different in the Woodland period. So we're living, we're working together, and rather than less than 100 people living in a village, we now will have 200 or 300 people living in a village. And that leads to something that is very important. There's an increase in food production. The more people you have working, the more food you can grow, the more food you can hunt. And if you have more food production, what happens to the population? It increases. You can support more people. You can support a larger population. And so health improves. Overall health improves because there's enough food. There's not malnutrition. And so the population increases. They're still hunting those small mammals, deer and bear and turkey and that kind of thing, just like their archaic ancestors did. This would be the kinds of homes that they lived in. They're dome-shaped, and that's to repel the rain. And y'all know it rains in Georgia. So you would see these in Georgia. You would also begin to see palisades or wooden walls to serve as protection. Now, what are these? Those are actually arrowheads. Fooled you, didn't I? Those are actually arrowheads because that's one of those technological innovations that happens during the Woodland Period. Just like the late Archaic period, and I don't know that you can really tell the difference between late Archaic and early Woodland, the people are beginning to grow most of what they eat. They domesticate a lot of different varieties of vegetables and crops, things like squash and beans, corn. Instead of going out and collecting it in the wild, which it does occur, they're able to cultivate it. They domesticate it. They grow it from year to year. This leads to something that I mentioned yesterday, and we call it a distribution of labor. Okay? So if we were a tribe, these are our farmers over here. What is their job? To farm. They're going to grow food. These are our hunters, our hunter-gatherers. What are they doing? They're going out and killing deer and bear. They're gathering things that maybe we're not growing. Okay? These two human beings, use that term loosely, are doing something new. They've discovered how to weave cloth out of cotton fibers. So they're making cloth. These guys over here, jewelry. So they're taking, whatever they can find in nature, and they're making jewelry. These guys, they're making tools. Tools, like socket wrench, hammer. They didn't have those back then, but making tools. And these guys are making pottery. They're potters. Okay? But instead of it being carved out of a piece of rock, it's now being made out of clay. And then it's fired. So it is more like the pottery we think of when we think of pottery. They're making stuff for people to use in their homes, to use every day, to carry water, store food, whatever. But they're also making ceremonial stuff. It's ornate. It's got a design on it. Because spiritual activity, religion, becomes important during the Woodland Period. And we have a couple of sites that are really close to us that are evidence of something. And we think it's evidence of one of two things. Either that some people were really important and they were buried in a really prominent place and had a prominent grave, or it's a place where they had spiritual ceremonies. And I think most archaeologists lean toward that second one. But we have rock eagle, of course. Does it look like an eagle? Looks like a sea turtle, I know, right? Looks like a fat seagull. Regardless of what we think it looks like, and we honestly don't know what the Woodland Indians intended that to be, some sort of winged thing, creature, huh? No, not a pterodactyl, not a penguin, too hot. But they were able to construct this, and it shows a great use of mathematics. There is symmetry that we see. Maybe not so much today. I mean, these wings are not symmetrical, but probably something was lost there. But when it was created, it was symmetrical. Both sides were exactly the same, or pretty close to it. And again, we don't know how they did it. They staked it out some way and built an outline and then filled it full of rock. And then we have another one that's actually about the same distance from Milledgeville as Rock Eagle, and it is Rock Hawk. There it is in all its glory. You want me to outline it for you? Yeah, because it's pretty bad. Well, I know, because I know what it looks like. I've been there. All right, so here we go. Here's the head. Here's the wing. There's the tail. And there's the other wing. And there's the other side of the head. Now, why does this one look so terrible and Rock Eagle look so bad? Not necessarily weathering, but Europeans. When people settled in that area, they found this, and rather than thinking of preserving it, I mean, why would they? They used the rock in building their homes, in the foundation. And so it has not fared well, as you can see. But state of Georgia and Georgia Power are kind of in a partnership here. This is at Lawrence Shoals. There's a campground, and it's really near Wallace Dam. They've done a good job of telling the story of the people that lived there. And one thing I discovered my last visit there is that Georgia was home, are you ready for this? To an ancient breed of camel. Georgia. A camel. Not a dromedary, but a camel. And it was like, I don't know, 12, 14 feet high. Big. Talking a big camel. So, if you ever get the chance to stop by Rock Hawk, the effigy, that's what this is not much to look at, but the information provided concerning the effigy and the people that live there is pretty good. All right. So, they're so good at farming, they're growing so much food that it creates a surplus. And what do you do when you have a surplus of anything? You keep some of it, you maybe sell it. Well, they're not selling, they don't buy and sell, but they do trade. And so, or barter. And so what we see happening, what we know happened, is that these really extensive trade routes are developed across what is now the United States. And you're going to read in your book when I give it to you, some of the things that have been found here that don't belong here. We are pretty certain they were brought back from like the Pacific Northwest, from Colorado, from New York, and different places like that. And we have found things that were from Georgia that didn't belong in those places. And so that's evidence that people were trading with each other. And one of the things that happens when people trade, when people meet each other, people travel, they take something with them. What is it? Okay, religion is part of culture. So they're not only trading stuff, right? They're also exchanging cultural things. And so we find evidence of things that Native Americans did in the Pacific Northwest that Native Americans in Georgia were doing also. And so we're not sure which one gave it to the other, but there's that exchange of culture. Their homes are, again, dome-shaped, using, again, natural materials. But in the East, where we are, the Eastern Woodland people began to use a substance called wattle and daub. And that's wood, a reed mat, and then plaster or mud. And that became the type of home that the Eastern Woodland Indians lived in. Again, the bow and arrow is invented, becomes a technological innovation, and changes the way people do things. All right. We have really elaborate religious ceremonies. We have evidence of that. And I personally think, and I think most archaeologists agree, that this effigy and others around the state, there's at least one other. It's not a bird, but it's a snake, a rock snake. These were used in some sort of religious ceremonies because religion became important. And burial, instead of burying somebody and piling rocks on top of them, they would build a mound with a chamber in the middle of it, and that's where they would bury people. Not everybody, but somebody that was important, the chief or a priest or somebody that was significant to society. What? Mm-hmm. It is. They're from a different period. And again, belief in the afterlife, religion. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm getting there, Michael. Okay. So this would be a Mississippian village, kind of like a small town. You've got a couple of buildings here in the center that are community type buildings, probably used for worship, for some form of government. You've got a wall. You got houses inside the wall and outside the wall. What are those people doing outside the wall? What are you guys? Y'all are farming, right? Okay. What happens when these guys are called out because the village has been attacked? What do these people do? They come inside, right? Because you don't want your farmers to be killed, because what's that going to do to your food production? It's going to go down. All right. Here is what Michael was so articulately talking about. This is not in Macon. I think this is probably up in North Georgia, but that type of mound we find in several different places scattered across Georgia. There are examples of it in the mountains. There's an example of it, what Michael was talking about, in Macon, and there's an example of it somewhere down in southwest Georgia. But these would be burial mounds. They actually would have a chamber like a pyramid, like the Egyptian pyramids, and that's where a person would be buried along with whatever they needed for the afterlife. Today it'd be a what? A phone and a giant screen TV, right? Yeah. This is exactly what Michael was talking about. This is the Omogee National Indian Mounds. It's actually, I think it's a national park now, the only one in Georgia. This is not a burial mound. This is a lodge. You can see the inside right here. This would be where the tribal elders would meet. If whatever form of government, if they had a government, this is where they might do their thing. It might have been used for worship, religious ceremonies, that sort of thing. Not sure. May have. But you can go to Macon. I mean, it's 30-minute drive. You can walk on top of it, yeah. All right. The bow and arrow is not a technological innovation, but they do improve it. They make it better. And as we just saw with the burial mounds at Omogee, they continue to build those, but they're also building places of worship, religious centers. And this I already gave to you. You're welcome, because in the past you would have to fill that in. You're welcome. All right. So what we're going to do real quickly is I'm going to give you your textbook. You're going to come sign for it. And then I've got a few pages for you to read, about 3.5, and then some questions to answer regarding what you read. So when I call you, please come get it. Let's see. Kaylin is not here. Where did Kaylin go? Okay. Lydia, Edwin. Here's your pencil.
Oh, that's.
You got a sign right there.
Oh, okay.
Not at the X, under the X.
Yes, sir.
You got a sign too.
Is this just a normal book or is it a national textbook?
It's a history book. It's not a textbook.
Can we keep these?
Yeah, till May. Sign. Sign right under Lydia. Right. Malik. sign under Edwin. You sign under Wright. So wait a minute. All right, let's see what we got over here. D-U-N-N. Okay, good. You got it. Savannah. Savannah. Got to sign for it. Hunter. When you get your book, if you will notice, there is a page right here. It's got a little Georgia, the word Georgia written on it. That's where you should put your name. Okay? Inside the book, right there. All right, Grady, Kelsey, come around and sign, please. You can sign for it. Who's next? Maddie, Ayush.
Thank you.
Madoff, Mad Dog. Davis. James. Michael, 2019. They're hey, come. They're paperback books. Michael. Marley's not here. See that pen just a second when you get done. Thanks. Oh, no, right there. All right, you sign where I just put that little slash. Evan. Thank you, sir. Morgan. You got to sign. Sign right there under that X. Kylie's like, I'm last. Peyton. And Kylie. Oh, wait a minute. I got to turn this off.